Hey Tyler, just shut that door, please.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the construct. You got about half the class period. Okay, so that's still about quarter past. But you got about 10 minutes to read. All right. You got Chuck Big Guns Elkins here. He's the S&T Science Technology Deputy Secretary of Defense. Okay. You have from Wayne Industries. You've got he's also the president of AUSA. So he's going to build it possibly, and he's also got the NCO and the soldier and the tactical part in mind. And then it turns out that Congressman Rich walked in, and he may have some questions for you too. I'm a consultant to Big Guns rather. So I work for Guardian, right? So whenever you're ready.
All right, gentlemen, please, Klein, Baker, and Kulos, we're here to pitch our idea for the Joint Unmanned Ground Vehicle, which ours is Smoky. So why we're here, the reason we're developing a Joint Unmanned Ground Vehicle is to supplement and replace.
Okay, go. Got it. Go ahead and move on.
Okay. Next slide. So our stakeholders for this, the decision maker is going to be, you can read all that if you have any questions.
Okay, got it. Move on.
For our process, we used the system design process. The first step was problem definition. The second step was solution design. The third, decision making. And the fourth, solution implementation. For our problem statement, we have to develop a joint unmanned ground vehicle that will supplement and replace coalition forces in early entry combat environments by lethal, maneuverable, and sustainable.
Hey, it's okay to read off these slides up here so you can see it, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So our design, we call it Smoky, and the way we developed it was maximizing mobility, specifically for the battle royale that you're going to have, and then also to, what's that?
Keep going.
Oh, okay. Specifically for the battle royale, and then to accomplish its missions, so that when it's going to supplement the soldier, we want it to get there as fast as possible to get its missions and to get back to maximize operability. So we developed it with it medium size and wheeled so that it can maneuver well, and we added tungsten armor so that it can take impact from the enemy, and also it's not going to be effective.
Find out how much tungsten armor is available to you under these vehicles.
It's not going to be. It's not going to be effective if it's not lethal, which is why we attach 5 Mach 5 weapon systems, 2 machine guns, a grenade launcher, free rocket, and a laser-guided missile. And then some more aspects of maneuverability is that our stakeholders wanted it to move at least 30 kilometers per hour. This thing's going to move at 35 kilometers per hour, and it can accelerate at 10 meters per second.
Question though, so you're heavily armed here.
Yep.
Which I like that, it's lethality. But at 84.5 million, that's a development code. What is that 84.5 million for?
That's going to be to create the vehicle.
What's our projected cost to bring this project into fruition?
So this is total cost for everything? Just the development cost?
Just the development cost.
Are you going to run us through the rest of the costs? Give us a good breakdown on those costs?
The total cost would be roughly $4 billion.
$4 billion.
That's
right.
right.
So you're going to, what does that entail actually?
For the procurement costs,
And Congressman, we'd have to have meeting after meeting.
What did we say? We said
said three.
our upper limit of $3 billion.
Sure did.
Now, naturally, we can change this design. This isn't an absolute. This is just our capability.
Well, let me just ask you this question. Later on in the slides, in the next couple of minutes, you're going to break down the cost for us?
Negative, sir.
You are not?
No.
Okay, so this becomes a problem because this is all about money. And so we want the best value for the money, and you're not prepared to have a conversation with us about money.
Well, so the estimated cost is going to be about $4 billion. We determined that when we built it, but
Over what period of time? What's the life cycle of this vehicle?
it should be what, like 3 years per vehicle.
3 years?
Yeah.
About?
Do I have any other alternatives to choose from? Because I can't afford $4 billion, and I don't think the Congressman's going to support that on the Hill.
Well, sure, not how hard it was for me to bring this $3 billion up so that DepSec could actually, he's the one making the decision on this, and we agreed on $3 billion.
between Congress, between what industry can do.
Well, the point of the project is to replace and supplement or replace soldiers in early entry combat. So we're putting a value on the lives of soldiers. That's the whole reason that we're doing this project. So if we're going to set a maximum value on the lives of soldiers, that's kind of undermining the whole process from the beginning.
Well, let's talk about it this way. So you're giving us this one alternative. Will you later on in your brief here give us some comparisons, different alternatives, help us understand the selection process you went through? So perhaps we could go with a different alternative, maybe not the one that you're proposing.
We do have a cost value analysis and stack bar chart. But the
Okay.
reason that
Well, let's move forward. Let's see some of these other alternatives.
Can we go to the stack bar chart?
Well, before we can actually discuss those alternatives, let's go through the process by which we determine which ones had a greater value to them.
Well, let's I'd like to see the alternatives, we can come back to this.
Right, sir.
So here we have the stack bar chart, and we have our 3 alternatives to our chosen one, which is Smoky and the Ideal. Ideal is obviously at the 10, and for the other alternatives we had the Freak Squad, which performed really low. It was the only one that was actually cheaper than the alternative that we chose, which was Smoky. But as you can see, it didn't even break the threshold for 2 of our TPMs, whereas Killer, which was significantly lower than Smoky or Cloud Blossom, its price was just above $4 billion, whereas Smoky was just below. And Cloud Blossom, which the differences between the two, as far as their TPMs go, between Cloud Blossom and Smoky, although it's a small difference, the price of Cloud Blossom was more expensive.
So except for the Brick Squad model here, which you're telling me
It didn't pass the feasibility.
should have been screened out, so it's not even a feasible alternative.
Right, sir.
The other 2 alternatives, Cloud and Killer here, are more expensive than Smoky.
Yes, sir.
So you probably started with this Wiki's morphological box.
Yes, sir.
What would be the maximum number of alternatives given your design parameters that you could have generated?
The maximum maneuverable alternatives?
The maximum number of alternatives, period, before you run them through a feasibility screening matrix.
Like how many
Yeah.
alternatives
Yeah.
possible?
Yeah.
We didn't do that math, sir.
All right, so
Over
you're-
100.
Yeah.
how about 11 million? Would be my guess. Probably in the millions. And you're presenting us with 3, one that's not even feasible based upon the initial requirements that we're going to go through. And these are all extraordinarily expensive. So out of the roughly other, let's say, ballpark figure, 8 or 9 million alternatives, you're telling me we can't come up with some cheaper alternatives that are feasible?
I mean, when you say it's extremely expensive, that's a very relative statement because.
Not to me. Not to me. Congress has passed budget.
Yes, sir.
I can't just throw an extra billion here and a billion there.
But when you're putting this out, you're replacing soldiers who you're also already paying.
Got it. But we've got to make a decision on this vice other kinds of projects.
In our business, everything has a price.
Yeah.
Everything has a price, and the price is $3 billion. That's it.
Actually, Cloud Blossom and Killer dominate here. They shouldn't even be considering either one of those 2 because I get less value at a higher cost.
Right.
Is that what I understood?
Correct.
Those other 2 are higher? And I got one that's infeasible, so I've really only got one alternative to
Right,
consider.
so which is why Smoky is the one that we're pitching.
And this is based off of when we constructed these alternatives, we designed them with our understanding of what kind of environment they're going to be utilized in. So we inserted our own human judgment into this design process. Now, are there technically 11 million alternatives? Correct. But are those actually going to be feasible to mission success?
You tell me. You're giving me 4 alternatives and 3 of them aren't even feasible, so you're forcing me to look at one that's higher than I'm willing to pay. So I want to know about the other roughly, let's say 9-10 million alternatives. Maybe we could find one in there. I'm asking if you've done your research to actually come up with some information so that we can have a conversation about it.
We would need more time to do that sort of testing.
With the resources and time given, this was the best model that we created.
Really, how much time did you have? Did you have like 6 weeks, 8 weeks to do this thing? It seems like a lot of time to come up with like 3 alternatives out of 1 million, 10 million.
How about we look at cost and the cost drivers and see if maybe we can salvage something here. So what are the key cost drivers with Smoky?
The biggest one we had, just off the top of my head, remembering from when we did the cost breakdown, we don't actually have a slide for it, I apologize for that. But the biggest were procurement costs, which is over 100 million, and disposal costs, which was over 100 million as well.
So let's assume over 100 million, the cost of the development of this thing is 84 million. So the 100 million is what, lifetime?
That's over the life cycle of the vehicle.
Per vehicle. Alright, so let's assume that we push costs to the side for the time being. Is Smokey always the best one?
For the test we ran, Smokey performed the best.
I'm talking in terms of sensitivity analysis swing weight.
Oh, yes, sir. Which is reflected in our stack bar chart.
Oh.
The only difference with Smokey is it has one less of the number of weapons.
But didn't you guys do a sensitivity analysis based on different importance of?
Yes, sir, we did.
Do we see that?
The sensitivity analysis?
Yes.
We don't have that included.
Alright, so what else do you want to tell us?
Just going back, for this analysis, we utilized, as mentioned, weapon systems, time to completion of the mission, and the health remaining for each of the simulations. We were constrained in
What's
our
compatibility index?
That was given in the Dragonfly.
Okay. You want to maximize that? Alright, let's move farther on. Let's get deeper into this thing. Go past your stack. I want to see you go past your stack bar chart.
This is cost versus value. We didn't even bother putting the other alternatives on here because, like you said, they didn't even, they weren't even feasible to begin with since they were lower value and higher cost.
So
there's
you
nothing
can't
really
you
to
can't
do.
give me an approximate cost for your ideal?
Ideal has $0 associated with it?
Well, if that was the ideal situation, it
It would
would be.
never be that way.
So ideal would be, right, free now and perfect, right? So the problem is with ideal is you have to be able to at least map some sort of cost to it. Give me what that gold-plated cost is, because right now, my takeaway is that I should be going for the ideal, which we all know is not the case. As the person that consults the DefSecDef and runs around and figures out how much and talks to industry, looks at what their capacity is to build these things, because they have to make a significant self investment to build this thing and make a whole new assembly line, the whole nine. This doesn't give us much. It doesn't show us where the domination is. It doesn't show us where there's wiggle room. And you've got to cross development costs, and what we're really concerned is life cycle costs.
Okay.
Right? So your framework of that is, it needs some significant help because this is not a useful slide for us. Next slide.
So at the end of the day, we were given a project to come up with a vehicle that's going to interact with unmanned aerial vehicles. It's going to be lethal, maneuverable, and sustainable, and it's going to support and replace coalition forces to reduce the number of casualties. This is the vehicle that's going to do that. So if we're going to put a price limit on that, then we're going to put a price limit on the whole project, which is because I mean this thing, it can be modified and it can be changed to meet the price requirements. But at the end of the day, this is a vehicle that's going to accomplish the mission.
You know, I was sitting here yesterday and I saw one that was about half the price of what you're proposing. And it was a much more detailed analysis than what I've seen you provide here. So I'm not inclined to move the contract your way because you have not convinced me that, one, you understand the cost, where those costs are coming from. Two, that you have a sufficient handle on the value of this alternative vice other alternatives, given the very large number of alternatives that are out there.
Well, so you can either pay about half the price for a machine that's going to break down, and
We don't argue with these things. This is a congressman. You just say yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So,
Yeah. I would consider smoking.
Okay.
It's not affordable.
Alright.
and-
well, let's have a timeout.
Yeah, let's do our kind of.
My hands are tied because I gotta build it. If I can't get the money, I can't build it.
Yes, I can't even pay him. Okay, so let's do this. Understand that we launched in on every opportunity to undermine your project. And in the world of analysis, that's what you do. You make sure that the analysis is solid and that you can underpin decisions well. Now you say, well, I'm not going to be an analyst. I'm going to be a low speed, low drag, whatever, this super duper individual warrior in some days. what do you think you're gonna do when you bring me an op? And I'm brigade or battalion commander, or I'm a division commander, you bring me an op which is just redonk, you haven't thought about it at all, right? I'm gonna chew you up there too, or maybe you have thought about it, I gotta draw that out of you though, right? So that, people are always gonna assume that you don't know what you're talking about. And when you give them an opportunity, then we're just gonna bite, that's why it's called Shark Tank, okay? That's life, that's what this is, it's a developmental tool. That said, talk about what you think your strengths and weaknesses go through, let's start with Al.
Well, for Smokey, or like,
Just no, for this experience here.
Well, we definitely got undermined with the whole 11 million options when the requirements were only to make 4. So that kind of hit me like a freight train when I wasn't looking. But
Another weakness is like we didn't know your budget was $3 billion.
No, it was in the SDR.
Yeah. We
It's in
knew
the
that,
SDR.
we just ignored it, I guess. We just overlooked it when we were going to the.
That was explicitly put in the SDR. But it's been a while since you probably looked at that, but that was explicitly in there from the get. What else?
I'd say our biggest weakness was probably the cost. I mean, obviously that was the biggest thing that was brought up was the cost.
Sure.
We didn't have a breakdown at all. We just had the development cost. We should have had total cost, development cost, procurement cost, unit procurement cost. Because in the Dragonfly Lab, they did the whole layout for you. And we should
Absolutely.
for each one of these and come up with better.
They armed you with all kinds of information. And we've already talked about some of the weaknesses of some of your other slides. Okay. I would say on a professionalism note, you can't take it personal. It's hard not to. Okay, I'm looking at you, right? Right? You can't take this personal. You don't want to argue back. This is the DepSecDef for S&T. All right? Talk about turning people into pink mist. He can make it like you don't even exist anymore.
well, I was
Okay,
thinking that.
so you just go, Roger that, sir, we'll fix that, or you're agile on your feet, or you say, you know what, if you did fail to meet the threshold, you tell them immediately, you know what, we programmed $3 billion, here's the bad news, $3 billion is not gonna do it, here's why. You frame it around what the issue is. You unfortunately came in naive in that regard, so let's go down the list here and let's talk about, some ways that we could kind of improve what we saw.
So one of the things that I'd really like to see from this, here's how I would organize this presentation. One, clearly you've got an alternative that you like, but it is one alternative among a very, very small set of alternatives. To strengthen your case for Smokey, it would be great if you could have said, here's the maximum number of alternatives we could have produced. We ran a series of feasibility screens against these things, and we started cutting them down. This particular design doesn't work, it's too expensive, it exceeds deployability, all of these sorts of things. And you get it down to something, you say, well, we're down to about 50,000, so we came up with a set of alternatives that we could actually analyze within the remaining 50,000. Maybe we got a hovercraft, maybe we got a tracked wheel, maybe we got a particular chassis type and we hold some things constant across those. Now we've got some feasible alternatives. So you don't get to the end of it, you say, well, this one's not even feasible, but we've already done the analysis. We spent your money to do the analysis. Not a good thing to say. So selection and the sampling up front is really important. So when you start doing the analysis, you've got a set of viable, feasible alternatives, and we can have a conversation about those. Second, then I really want to see a good understanding of value, a comparative value across the different alternatives, the feasible alternatives. So I want to see, much like you've done here, for a set of feasible alternatives, where the value is. How I might have an improved solution, right? And you don't have that there, but how could I potentially tweak some of the components and the elements in a way that would strengthen value in one area or another? And you could then compare that effort to cost. I want a breakdown analysis of cost. I really want you to drill down into cost, and I want you to start talking about some of the tweaks here in the value relative to the cost, okay? And then finally, I want you to be able to come up and say, again, we recommend this particular solution for the following reasons, and give me strong justification, right? So I think that, I realize this is your probably first attempt to do this, but sort of welcome to this world, and this is how it works, and you need to be able to justify every single thing that you do and every single thing that you say, and you've got about 5 to 10 minutes to make your case. So those would be the areas where I think your presentation could have been improved.
Yeah, Dr. Keith hit on most of mine. Real quick, no choices. We've only got Smokey, right? So it's kind of a take it or leave it proposition, and it's an expensive proposition. cost versus value chart. Again, no frame of reference, right? You know, the ideal's down there at zero cost, and just got Smoky stuck out there at the development cost price. Yeah.
So would you recommend like having MRAP, not with a value, but like having like phase lines, MRAP cost, Abrams cost, just to
No,
like.
because I mean, it's not an equivalent thing. You wouldn't drop an MRAP in with an expeditionary force, right? So.
But just to show like how much we
No,
spend
because we're
already.
talking value here, and so having an Abrams on here wouldn't demonstrate the same value. What I would do is have as many courses of action as possible on there, and then you know, what we lacked was the ability to do a Pareto efficiency curve. What we've seen before is some folks will almost always recommend the highest value one, right? But sometimes that's too expensive. But if you look at the way the efficiency curve, it'll point you to one that may be valuable that's on that same part of the curve. We lost that opportunity with you. Everything in here is a negotiation. People are going to eat you up. People are going to bump you past slides. People are going to just drill in on something that you don't think is the core part of this thing. And yes, we do put value on this. Because if you want me to spend an extra $1 billion, I don't know where I'm going to get it. I literally don't know. Am I going to take it out of the commissaries? Am I going to take it out of the tanks? Am I going to take it out of something else? I cannot. Okay? But we just slow our roll. We relax. The problem is that you had a couple of things in here which were so glaringly problematic that we could never really get to the essence of the brief and have that discussion. And it became a distraction when, frankly, your ability to think on your feet kind of got in the way because you didn't even realize that $3 billion was there. Okay? Mr. Batterson?
Yeah, same thing, I just gotta tell you, and that's what this thing was all about. I mean, it's just like you see on TV. You seen the old shark attack on TV, same thing, and I gotta put it in big letters here for your instructor. Big shark attack, the guys kinda fell apart when he ate your lunch. I mean, it was obvious, you came in there pretty good, started off real well, and then it was all coming at you real fast, and you were getting pissed, for lack of better terms. I know you were. And so, but you gotta get over that hill, because it's going to happen, not only in this experience here, but when you get down there to leaders, I'm telling you, it's gonna happen. When you were walking up to a lieutenant colonel and say, well, this is my opinion, and he looks at me, yeah, okay, lieutenant, get the hell away from me. All right? And I'm gonna tell you, it's gonna happen, all right? So, but this was a good exposure to some of the things that you're gonna see later on in life. And other than that, I thought you'll do well for the position that you're in.
Yeah, it's all about labor. It's not. I mean, it's all about baby, not labor, right? And that's where the emotion comes in. You've worked so hard, and this, that, and the other. You've done all these, and then I'm digging you on something else. Let it roll off your back like water off the duck, man. It just has to be that way. It has to be that way. Okay. And unfortunately, you guys had some significant errors in here that just allowed us to probably bite it a little bit deeper than you anticipated, and so that kind of spiraled it, out of control. I appreciate the effort. I appreciate the fact that you came in here and did this, and made brought these charts together and stuff. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, man. You guys lost. All right. I will see you in class on Wednesday.
Oh,
Sounds good.
All right.
See ya. Thank you.
right off,
All right,
right off
okay.
as an
All right.
experience. Oh.